Hello, Massimiliano. Welcome to Soga Talks. This is Irene. Hi, obviously, we met before, but
Yes.
most important to have you here today. So for the audience out there, this is Massimiliano Di Sante. He is a CEO of MineVenue company focusing on process mining. And today we will talk about digital transformation 2020. We will talk about what's hot, what makes sense for companies to have a look at if they're in the middle of transformational journey or if they're just thinking about getting started. And Massimiliano will walk us through his very opinionated point of view. And I hope to get some interesting discussion going on the topic of where to start and where to get going in 2020. Massimiliano, welcome. Let's get going.
Irene, thank you for the invitation. I'm really glad to be here today to discuss about the enablement, you know, that a solution like process mining can bring to the digital transformation journey. So personally, I have almost 30 years of experience on the digital landscape, you know, always work for enterprise organization. And, you know, in 2012, after several years of experience in business process management, re-engineering and workflow automation, we decided that it was the time to change. No, we perceived that the traditional approach was not able to cover the new problem that we faced. Like as an example, you know, emerging technologies like AI, like chatbot, like RPA, are increasing a lot the pace of change, and are increasing also a lot the volume of data that you should manage. And with the traditional approach, you cannot keep your model constant aligned with the reality, you know. And this is going to be more and more true. So we decided that it was the time to create an innovative solution that was able to automatically design your organizational process starting from company data. So this is the starting point. But process mining is only, you know, one of the stakeholders of your digital transformation journey, an important stakeholder, but in order to manage your digital transformation journey, you need to be able to connect the dots. So in order to start your digital transformation journey, for sure, you need a solution like process mining that could be the starting point in order to automatically get the disease picture of your processes. So this is the first step: know your processes, and this is what is typically called the discovery phase. So with the discovery phase, you can analyzing your transactional data related to your main application like ERP, like CRM. You can automatically get the end-to-end process related to it, thanks to process mining solution. But then, you know, you need also to be able to identify what are the potential improvements that you can bring to these processes that you're able to automatically analyze, and you need also to be able to identify quickly identify what are the opportunities on one side for improvement, on the other side for automation. So now, let's say process mining is really a hot topic, okay? But the success of process mining on digital transformation project is tightly coupled to the capability to integrate with the rest of the stakeholders. And the rest of the stakeholders are typically robotic process automation, our business IBPMS solution, so intelligent business process management solution, low-code platforms, and also what is called discovery or task mining solutions. So all these stakeholders, together with an important one that is called AI, so artificial intelligence, are going to provide the capability to manage the governance of your digital transformation journey, reducing time and cost in order to constantly monitor and improve your processes. This is
fantastic. So I know you're working with clients, and I know process mining is not a mainstream technology yet. We know that business process management been around for a while. It's about, what, 40 years old maybe, right? And about 20 years old, it was the golden days for BPM, business process management, that their mainstream companies started adopting business process improvement initiatives. So process mining was still a kind of gray area, to my knowledge, until maybe 10 years ago even, because finding out what your as-is process, what your as-is state for any company, any business, was still a bit problematic, and it was very manual process of process discovery. What is your enterprise systems? What is it your employees doing day to day? So can you please explain to the audience out there who is not familiar with process mining in details, how is it different from process management, in a way that what does new technology able us to do in this digital transformation 2020 age?
Thank you for the question. You know, the main difference between process mining and business process management, I think, is the starting point and the approach. So with business process management, you need to have a design tool that is able to describe your process flow, and then you need to have an engine that is able to use this design flow in order to define the sequence of activities that should be performed by the different actors of your process in order to complete the several tasks related to it. So it's a top-down approach. So together with the process owner, you analyze the process, you define the sequence of steps, the actor involved, and then you deploy it into our flow engine. And this is the traditional business process workflow management approach. And this is very good when you have very structured process with a very defined sequence of operation that should be followed. But this is not applicable. When you have processes that are changing frequently, and that you need to be able to also to quickly update. And so with this by quote traditional approach, it will not be possible to keep the pace of change. And so in order to be able, and the second point is that since the organization are changing so fast, you need to be able to quickly respond. So the process mining is providing you with a different approach. Instead of moving with a top-down, you analyze the transactions that are performed by the different application in your value stream chain, and thanks to process mining algorithm, you automatically design the process flow. So at the end, we produce the same result, a business process model, but on business process management, the business process model is designed by the process owner. On process mining, the business process model is automatically designed by the algorithm by reading the real transactions that are performed. And this is the starting point. This is a good way of analyzing disease processes that are running in your organization. And so with that, you remove the problem related to process obsolescence, because you can always get the latest version of your process by simply running algorithms. The changes, because you get the process from the data, so you are always aligned with the latest version of your process. And you then have several advantages, because if you can constantly monitor how your processes are really run, so you can compare your de facto processes with your company normative model and identify non-conformances, deviation, and you can also identify what are the corrective action that you should to take in place in order to address the issue that you identify. On the other side, let's say that the process mining is really good, but it has also a limitation, I would say, that in order to run process mining analysis, you need to be able to extract the data from the different systems that are involved. So this is taking time that you need to invest also with the IT department. And so this can a little bit, let's say, it's a barrier, for the adoption of process mining solution. But on the other side, once you start using it, you immediately identify what is the important return of investment that you can get. And if you want to work with a continuous improvement approach, this is the effort that you have to put in place in order to move forward with process mining initiatives. Then, most of the players are presenting you this approach. So you get the data from the system, you automatically get the picture of your process, you run compliance, conformance check, you can identify bottlenecks, you can identify areas of improvement, you can so identify what are the problems in your process, and then what could be the saving if you address these issues. But since we are in a continuous innovation period, process mining is evolving. And so what's new on the market in these days is what Gartner is calling, on one side, the digital twin of an organization, on the other side, hyperautomation, where process mining is one of the key actors. So let's discuss before about the digital twin of an organization. So with process mining, we're able to derive a dynamic model of your process. So a model that is not only telling you how the process flow is managed, but is also providing you information about the resources, the role involved, what are the costs related to all the activities that are performed. And in addition to it, in order to be a real precise dynamic model of your process, will provide you also the automated discovery of business rules. So just to give you an example, we are automatically identify with process mining what are the different paths followed by your process, what is the probability to walk through these different paths. Let's try to get to identify an example, a loan approval process, okay? With a loan approval process, with traditional process mining algorithm, we will be able to tell you that on 20% of the cases, you ask the authorization to the director, okay? But if you are able to derive a business rule, then we will be able to tell you that when the customer is VIP and when the loan amount is over 200,000 euro, then you ask the authorization to the director. So, the big difference today, if you compare also the process mining landscape, is related to the capability to create a very precise dynamic model of your process. More the dynamic model is precise, better will be your decision making. Okay? And this is the next step, but we can move forward. So you get a precise model of your process, you are able to have a dynamic model. So for me, dynamic model, the digital twin of an organization can be seen as a company hologram. You know, you have a company, you can play with it. Now, in order to play with it, what do you really need? You need a simulation engine. So the next step is I automatically get the picture of my process from the data. I create this hologram, but then I need to be able to play with it. And play with it, for us, it means, being able to run what-if analysis in order to identify what will be the advantage of the impact of the changes that we want to apply to the process. And in order to do it, you can use traditional business process management simulation engine that are going to tell you, okay, you will increase the resource load, the lead time will be more, and so on and so forth. But what we think is really needed and what we defined and created is a sophisticated simulation engine that we like to see it as a time travel machine that let you generate the next 6 months, 1 year of operation. So you are not only getting, insight of what can be the overall advantage of the changes that you want to apply to your process, but it's like if you were a time traveler, and you were able to be in 2021. In 2021, you export the data related to the overall year. You can import this data into your process mining solution, and you can compare as is and to be and see the advantages or the issues related to the changes that you want to apply to your process. Simply because without implementation effort, we are able to concretely perceive what will be the benefits that we want to apply to our processes. So this is, an overview of an holistic approach that starts from, the analysis, the monitoring, and the continuous improvement.
Perfect. Is there a place for AI? Because I sense in reading the data, right, we can get a lot of help from AI. Can you comment, please?
Yes, I think we need to speak about AI and also then to discuss about automation.
Very nice.
I will say the two subjects that we should discuss. Let's start with AI. So AI, for sure, it's able to augment the analysis that we perform. So, with process mining, you mainly analyze the process flow. You mainly analyze process flow, and you analyze also, the potential problems, the potential issues that you have related to the process flow. But if you want to run, as an example, root cause analysis. So process mining is telling you that you have a specific deviation. So you perform activities that should not happen. Okay? But then in order to identify why these activities happen, then you can use ML and AI algorithms. So this is a typical case where we integrate process mining algorithms with ML algorithms in order to augment the analysis that we want to perform. And one key point of this kind of solution is the easy way to integrate, your solution with an AI and ML platform. Because you need, according to the different methods, to the different process that you want to analyze, be able to select the best suitable ML and AI algorithm to be used in order to complement your process mining analysis. What else? Okay, so this is, I think, tightly coupled we are this, we frequently forget about the importance of data.
Dark data, right, in log files and emails and customer communication, all these critical pieces of information company possess. So please get going. Data is critical, yeah.
Yeah, it's really critical, and so in our vision of digital transformation, the possibility to, to have a data lake accessible, the data lake that the organization must keep constantly up to date, it's a key point to speed up your digital transformation journey. And the next point is not only a data lake, but also what we call process repository. So on one side, you need to have a knowledge base related to your data domain. On the other side, you need to have a knowledge base related to your process domain. So when you run process analysis, you can run every time what I call a one-shot process analysis. So you focus on procure to pay, you focus on order to cash, you focus on account payable, and you can do it and you will get benefit. But if you want to have an holistic approach to business process analysis, monitoring and improvement, you need to be able to connect the dots. So just to give an example, I need to be able to discover that Massimiliano is spending his time both on P2P and on procure to pay and on order to cash processes. This is an advantage, I need to be able to run this correlation. And in order to do it, I need to keep a repository of objects related to processes. So each time I analyze an additional process, I'm increasing the knowledge base, not only related to data, but also related to processes. And as next, we already discussed about it, it's also a key point to business rules.
Mm-hmm. And it helps the whole organization, right? Keeping process repository. It helps less trained employees, new employees to get knowledge faster, right? Yeah. And I'm sure there's a place for AI there as well to augment, right? The knowledge of,
And so all these components are also mentioned. I'm really glad. The first time I read the report from Gartner related to hyperautomation, I saw something that for me, it was not called hyperautomation, but was already something that we clearly had in mind. Because if you analyze what Gartner see as, let's say, the key component of your hyperautomation journey, you will find process mining, you will find business rule engine, you will find, for sure, IBPMS and low-code platform, and then you will need to have artificial intelligence, and as last, the discovery or task mining feature. So this is the additional, let's say, the additional stakeholder needed in order to complete your hyperautomation journey. It is not enough, but it's also a part of your overall hyperautomation journey. So just quickly and easy to explain, with process mining, you are able to automatically analyze the end-to-end process streamline starting to transactional data. So you analyze SAP, you analyze Salesforce, you analyze what the robots are doing, RPA, chatbot, and so on and so forth, and you're able to connect the dot, you know, to identify the dependencies between the different applications in managing a process. And this is really good, effective in order to manage the continuous improvement of your processes. But you miss with this analysis an important piece, that is the user interaction in the management of these stakeholders. So just to give you an example, consider a P2P process where we have a phase that is the order creation. From a process mining perspective, you will notice that on average, the service time in order to manage the order creation is 10 hours. Then before the adoption of task mining or discovery, you know, process discovery, with process mining, what we were doing, it was, okay, with the user, we identify, looking at the user interaction in the management of the creation of the order, we will define what could be the level of automation that we can reach.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then we will use simulation in order to run what-if analysis and to see the overall impact of the automation on the process. Now, with the adoption of task mining or process discovery, we are able to connect the dots. So we are able to, from the transactional creation of the order, mm-hmm. Register what are doing the users when they completely register the order. So what are the fine-grained steps performed by the user interacting with SAP application in order to create the order, and you are able to precisely identify the repetitive task that can be automated. So we can identify on one side the EpiPath. So what are the users that are performing in the best way the creation of the order? What are the users that are closing the creation with the shortest time and costs, you know?
Yeah, so you can help to identify bottlenecks basically in the process, right?
We identify, yes, we are focused on the customer journey. So we are focused on the user interaction, on the interaction between the user and the transactional application. And this is really useful because we can identify the repetitive task, so we can precisely tell you what will be the real level of automation that you can reach by adopting RPA technologies. So the element of innovation, you know, one of the big issues, this is because Gartner is calling hyper-automation this new approach, one of the big issues that every organization has now is the capability on one side to scale the robotic process automation journey, and on the other side to reduce the costs related to the pre-automation phase. So the pre-automation phase, it's all the analysis that you need to put in place in order to identify what are the automation priorities, what are the candidated activities that you should automate in order to get the most ROI from your robotic process automation journey. So two needs. The first one is reduce the pre-automation effort that, according to a Deloitte analysis, is as of today the 70% of the overall cost of automation.
The time and effort consuming, yeah, absolutely.
Number, you know, so on one side, reduce the pre-automation effort. Mm-hmm. On the other side, you know, being able to scale. And with the discovery, so with the process discovery, you can reduce the pre-automation effort. I mean, instead of interviewing the resourcing, stay beside them in order to take note and analyze what they are doing when they create the order. So identify the most frequent repetitive task, that is the one that you should automate. You have agents that are recording what all the users, let's say, a list of users that you want to monitor are doing inside your organization, and then you will get a picture of your customer journey, and you will be able to automatically identify for each task, because on the front end we are discussing about task, what is the level of automation, and so the saving that you can get from the robotic process automation journey. So with that, we reduce the pre-automation effort. But by using only discovery, we will not be able to scale. So you can reduce the time needed in order to identify the best candidate, let's say, activities to be automated, tasks to be automated. But in order to scale, you need to be able to understand what will be the overall impact of your task automation in your business process. And in order to analyze your business process, you need to use process mining. So this is the value that process discovery, so user interaction, and process mining, business transaction, together are bringing to the robotic process automation journey. Reduction of the pre-automation effort, scalability over 50 robots. Deloitte identified that as of today, only a 4% of the robotic process automation projects are over 50 robots. And so hyperautomation has this objective: automate as many activity as we can with an holistic approach. So considering what are the impact of your automation. Let me just give you an example. Let's consider most of the RPA players as of today are not using process mining. Some are integrated process mining, some still think that by simply having a discovery solution, they can solve all the issues they have. This is not true. By implementing only the discovery solution, they will be able to address the first issue, but not the second one, because they will consider the advantage of each single task in the automation journey, but they will not consider the impacts. Let me give you an example. Let's say that we automate 90% of the order creation. Okay, that's good. We are happy because we reduce costs, we reduce time, but we didn't consider that on the next step related to order creation, that is order approval, we have one person that is in charge of it. So this person before was receiving 10 orders per day. Now, thanks to the robotic process automation journey, is receiving 100 orders per day. And so we will start immediately having a queue, you know? And without the end-to-end process streamline that you can automatically get thanks to process mining, you will not be able to get this information.
Massimiliano, yeah, this is enormously helpful for me, and I hope for our audience out there. Okay, it is time to wrap up though, and I would like to leave everybody with 3 major takeaways that we discussed. So what I understood, hyperautomation has different components to it. And this is important to understand. And what you enlightened me about is that process mining and discovery is the time, resource, and effort consuming exercise. That's why it's critical, right? To think about it, to equip yourself with appropriate tools. So please give our audiences about 3 takeaways that you want kind of wrap up our conversation with. Thank you.
The takeaway will be, you know, you need to start your digital transformation journey with an incremental approach. So according to the maturity level of your organization, you can start, you can even start with the process discovery. So it will be the easiest path, because you will not need a tightly coupled integration with your transactional systems. And so you will be able to start analyzing your customer journey, the user interaction, and the opportunity of automation in terms of tasks. And this is let's say, the straightforward approach. So you start with process discovery, you can integrate with several RPA platform, and you can start get advantages and quick win on your digital transformation journey with the objective of automation and continuous improvement. But then at some point in time, you will need to scale. And in order to scale, you will need to consider data integration. You will need to consider to start having a knowledge base in terms of processes, business processes, and you will need to connect the dot between process discovery and process mining. You will be able then to have a digital twin of your organization. You will be able to play with this digital twin of your organization, with this hologram of your processes of your organization, and you will take big advantage of it, because this will let you constantly manage the governance of your overall processes, and will let you scale. So not only automate, but monitor, automate, and improve full business processes.
Very well.
And the next is for sure the AI that will augment the analysis that you can run, that you can perform, bringing an additional insight to your decision-making process.
Fantastic, Massimiliano. I thank you so much for your time today. I would like to include additional helpful links, articles from MindVenue in this video, so our audience out there can check out the fantastic solution that you have, and also to get access to your team that will be able to help them in their process mining journey. All right.
We will be glad to provide all the link, and thank you so much for the invitation. Yeah,
absolutely. Thank you. I had a great time. Thank you. Thanks so much. Yep. Bye.